The bank balance displayed exactly $0.00. She blinked, wiped her eyes, and clicked the refresh icon. The page reloaded. The number remained unchanged. She clicked it again, faster this time, her pulse hammering against her throat. The cursor blinked with rhythmic, indifferent precision. 15 years of work, every paycheck, every sacrifice, gone in 42 seconds. She leaned back, the chair legs scraping harshly against the floor. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaking. She tried to navigate to her transaction history, but the page timed out. A white screen stared back at her, empty and silent. She grabbed her phone from the table, intending to call the bank, but the signal bar showed a single, ominous notification. No service. The connection to her digital life had been severed. Maya stood up, knocking the mouse onto the floor, and paced the small kitchen. Every breath felt thin. She checked the phone again. Still no service. The silence of the apartment suddenly felt heavy, pressing against her ears. She was locked out of her own existence. Miles away, in a room defined only by the hum of cooling fans, Marcus Thorne watched the glow of his monitors. The air was stale, smelling of ozone and trapped heat. He did not move with urgency. He did not look like a thief. He sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on a single narrow progress bar creeping across the center of his primary screen. It moved with agonizing mechanical patience. 98%. 99%. He tapped his finger against the desk, a steady, rhythmic sound that echoed in the dark. The bar hit the far edge of the window. The screen flickered, the interface refreshing to show a successful transfer through the cryptocurrency mixer. The funds were now scrambled, untraceable, and sitting in a digital vault halfway across the world. Marcus leaned back into the shadows. He did not celebrate. He did not look at the screen with triumph. He simply closed the tab, minimized the window, and reached for a glass of water. The heist was not a struggle. It was a calculation. Every bit of data had been harvested, every security layer peeled back like dead skin. The money was gone. Maya's life was now just a series of ledger entries in a database he controlled. He sat in the silence, listening to the soft whir of his machines as they waited for the next target. Marcus did not break locks. He built them, using the pieces of a life left scattered in the open. He opened a new browser tab and navigated to a public genealogy site. He typed in a name, clicked through search results, and recorded a maiden name in a notepad. It was a simple entry, a footnote in a family history, but to him, it was a master key. He moved to an old social media profile, scrolling through years of digital footprints. He paused on a photograph from a high school field trip. He zoomed in on the banner in the background. The mascot, the school color, the date, each detail was a brick in a wall he was building around her identity. He cross-referenced these scraps against common security questions. Her mother's name, the first pet, the street she grew up on. He found them all, hidden in plain sight, protected by nothing more than the assumption of privacy. He saved the profile, documenting every answer, every potential bypass. He worked with the patience of a spider, weaving a web, ensuring that when the time came, he would not be a stranger, but a ghost possessing her own secrets. He had everything he needed to become her. Marcus took a deep breath, dropping his shoulders and letting a tremor enter his voice. He dialed the customer support line. The automated system cycled through options, finally connecting him to a live representative. The background noise of a call center bled through the earpiece. Marcus spoke, his tone tight with desperation. "I am at the hospital," he said, the words coming out fast, strained. "My wife, Maya." She dropped her phone in the toilet. "It is completely dead. I need to activate a new SIM card immediately so I can stay in contact with her doctors." The representative hesitated, asking for security verification. Marcus rattled off the maiden name and the high school mascot, his delivery practiced and smooth. He didn't sound like a thief. He sounded like a man terrified of losing his spouse. The representative sighed, the sound of a keyboard clicking in the background. "I understand, sir," the voice replied, the skepticism vanishing. "I am pushing the activation through now." Marcus watched his own phone screen. A small light blinked. The transfer was happening. He didn't need a weapon to breach her life. He only needed to sound like the person who belonged there. The representative confirmed the swap. Marcus hung up, the silence of the room returning instantly. Maya held her phone up to the window, searching for a single bar of reception. A moment ago, the screen had been full. Now it displayed the cold, static text. No service. She tapped the airplane mode toggle, flicking it off and on, watching the icon cycle through a futile search. Nothing. She walked into the hallway, then toward the front door, looking for a signal that had simply ceased to exist. Her thumb hovered over the power button to restart the device. She pressed it, held it, and waited for the logo to appear. The phone vibrated, booted up, and returned to the same empty state. No bars, no data, no connection. Miles away, Marcus watched his own device flicker to life. A string of text messages began to populate his screen in rapid succession. Verification codes, banking alerts, password reset tokens. Each one arrived like a digital heartbeat, confirming his total control. He tapped the screen, entering the credentials to drain the accounts he had spent weeks mapping. Maya sat back down at her kitchen table, staring at the black glass in her palm. She was still holding the phone, but it was now nothing more than a paperweight. The door to her digital life had been locked from the inside, and she was on the outside, completely unaware of the thief holding the key. Maya spent the next 48 hours in a fog of panic. She finally regained access to a landline and called the bank, her voice cracking as she recounted the unauthorized transfers. She waited on hold for 20 minutes, listening to the synthesized music, convinced that a human being would understand the error. When the agent finally picked up, Maya described the SIM swap, the stolen identity, and the drained balance. The agent interrupted her mid-sentence. The transactions were verified with the correct security codes, the voice said, devoid of sympathy. Our system recorded the inputs as valid. There is no evidence of a breach. Maya begged them to look at the IP addresses, the locations, the inconsistency of the withdrawals. The agent repeated the same line, a script designed to shield the bank from liability. She hung up and turned to the cryptocurrency exchange, but their portal offered only a dead-end loop of automated replies. They pointed to the terms of service. They pointed to the security codes. They pointed to the system itself. Every gatekeeper she contacted treated her as the intruder. The infrastructure built to secure her future had become a steel wall, and it was now guarding the thief. She stood in her silent kitchen, the weight of 15 years of labor gone, replaced by the crushing realization that the system did not care who the real Maya was. The trail Marcus left was digital, but the consequences were real. Investigators followed the breadcrumbs of his stolen data, tracking the logs back to his private server. He was apprehended in a quiet apartment, the same device he used to dismantle Maya's life still sitting on his desk. A gavel fell, sentencing him to 12 years in prison. For many, that would have been the end, but Maya had seen the void in the law that allowed him to operate. She did not retreat into the silence of her loss. Instead, she walked up the stone steps of the state capitol, a folder of evidence tucked under her arm. She stood before the lawmakers, laying out the timeline of her theft, the failure of the carriers, and the vulnerability of every citizen with a mobile phone. She demanded accountability. Her testimony cut through the bureaucratic indifference, forcing the legislature to draft new, binding regulations for mobile carriers. She turned her stolen future into a mandate for change, ensuring the loopholes Marcus exploited were closed by statute. The fight was no longer about recovering lost money. It was about rewriting the rules of digital safety to ensure no one else would ever be erased by a simple phone call again. Legislation takes time, but your security cannot wait for the courts. You are the ultimate gatekeeper of your digital existence. Start by calling your mobile carrier today. Demand a port-out PIN. Ask for SIM swap protection. This is not a request, it is a requirement. Think of this PIN as a physical vault for your phone number. Without it, your number remains a wide-open door for any attacker. Once that is locked, you must address the fatal flaw in your current security habit. SMS verification. Text messages were never built for sensitive data. They are interceptable. They are vulnerable. Move your accounts immediately to an authenticator app. Use a hardware security key if your accounts support them. These tools generate rotating codes that exist only on your device, disconnected from the reach of a remote attacker. Do not wait for a breach to realize your phone is the remote control for your life. Take the device out of the attacker's hands by stripping away the weaknesses they rely on. Lock down these 2 entry points right now. Every minute you delay is a minute you remain exposed to the same tactics that erased Maya. Act before the connection is severed. Your phone is now hardened, but you must silence the noise. Enable the Silence Unknown Callers feature on your device immediately. This simple setting acts as a filter, pushing potential threats to voicemail so you never have to engage with them. Once the noise is gone, you must build the final wall around your identity. Visit the websites of Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion today. You are looking for one specific action: a credit freeze. When you freeze your credit, you effectively lock your financial record behind a digital wall. It prevents any stranger from opening new accounts, taking out loans, or draining your future in your name. It is a vital step that stops the damage before it starts. This is not about being paranoid. It is about taking back the keys to your life. By freezing these records, you ensure that even if a criminal gains a fragment of your data, they cannot leverage it into a new financial life. You are building a physical vault for your credit, making it inaccessible to anyone without your explicit, verified consent. Complete these 3 steps: silencing callers, freezing your credit, and securing your accounts, and you turn your life from an open target into an impenetrable fortress. There is one final rule that stands between you and the void: the hang-up and callback protocol. Criminals are masters of the urgent, panicked voice. They will call you pretending to be your bank, claiming your account is under attack, demanding you verify a code. Do not play their game. If you receive an incoming call claiming to be from your financial institution, hang up immediately. Do not engage. Do not ask questions. Find the physical debit card in your wallet, flip it over, and dial the official number printed on the back yourself. This ensures you are speaking to the bank, not a ghost on the other end of a spoofed line. Never trust the caller ID on your screen. It is a mask that can be worn by anyone. Your phone is the remote control for your life. It manages your money, your identity, and your future. Every notification, every incoming call, and every link is a potential breach. You are the only person who can secure that connection. Take control of the device. Lock it down today. Do not leave the door wide open for the next predator to walk through. Secure your digital life now, or risk losing everything to a single, calculated moment of trust.